All right, welcome to Module 5, Powers and Exponent Laws. Um, what this module is a review of some of the stuff that we've done in Module 2 and Module 4, but it extends it so that what we're often going to be doing now is leaving a power written as a power, as opposed to evaluating it and finding out what the numeric value of it is. And really what this is doing is it's getting us ready to study algebra, where we're working with variables and can't always figure out um, what the value of the power is, because it'll depend on the value of the variable. Now, you have a module of work, and what you'll notice is these videos correspond to that module of work. So I want you to have that module of work with you. And what I'm going to be doing is asking you to stop the video and do some of the checkpoints as we go along so that you know whether or not you're understanding the material. So let's start off. You notice what is a power? So we learned in Module 2 that we can use powers to rewrite statements where we have repeated multiplication, something like this, where we have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. We would say in this case that 3 is a factor 4 times. So we can write 3 to the power of 4 as opposed to writing it out longhand. And the 3 is called the base, whereas the 4 is called the exponent. And when I think of 3 to the 4th as a whole, we call that the power. So if I wanted to rewrite this as a power, 7 times 7 times 7 times 7, my base would be 7, because that's the factor that we're dealing with. And the factor occurred 5 times, so we'd write 7 to the power of 5. Now what about something like just 5? And what we'll notice is that factor only occurs once. So the base is 5, and it only occurred once, so we'd write it as 5 to the 1. Now often we won't write it like that. We'll just leave it as a 5, but you should understand that in that case, it's really 5 to the power of 1. So I want you to take a look at your page 55 of your handout there, and there's a checkpoint for you. So I want you to stop the video now, and I want you to do this, and then we'll fill it in together in a moment. All right, let's see how you made out here. So writing this as a power. 2 is my factor, and it occurred 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, so we'd write it as 2 to the power of 6. In B, 5 is my factor, and it occurred 1, 2, 3, 4 times, so 5 to the power of 4. Now in C, negative 10 is my factor, or my base, and it occurred 1, 2, 3 times, so my exponent is 3. In D, 4 is my factor, or my base, and it occurred twice. So we'd write 4 to the power of 2, or 4 squared. Now E, negative 7 is my factor. How many times did it occur? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we write negative 7 as the base, 8 is my power, or is my exponent, sorry. So negative 7 to the 8th power. 8th is my power. All right, let's complete this table. Well, how do we write this as a power? Well, we'd write it as 8 to the 4th power, and we'd read that as 8 to the 4th. All right? In the second one, we have 7 to the power of 2. Often we'll say that's 7 squared, as opposed, you can say 7 to the power of 2, but we often say 7 squared. All right. Now here, 3 is my base, or my factor, and it occurred 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we'd write it as 3 to the 6th, then we say 3 to the 6th power. Here we have 2 to the power of 3. Now often we'll write that as 2 cubed, as opposed to saying 3 to the power of 3. All right, well done. Let's continue on. Now, what happens when I have a power? Well, we should be able to write it the other way. We should be able to write it as repeated multiplication, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? Now, here's something that students will often say to me, well, it's 2 times itself 5 times, so they'll count the times signs. And then what you'll notice is I only have 4 times signs, but I have the factor 2 5 times, and that's what we want. So we are less concerned with the time signs. We're more concerned with how many factors do I have. Now that's written as a repeated multiplication. If I want it in standard form, I find out what's the value of that. So because I'm doing multiplication, the order, and it's all multiplication, the order isn't important now. Now be careful, if there's more than one operation, we've got to follow our order of operations. So I'm going to get 32. Writing this as repeated multiplication, 10 times 10 times 10, and I get, that's repeated multiplication. This is 100 times 10, which is 1,000 in standard form. Okay, so once again, let's go into the checkpoint. This one's on page 56. So I'd like you to stop the video, fill in this table for me. All right, so let's fill in this table. Notice 2 to the power of 3, or 2 cubed, as repeated multiplication. 2 times 2 times 2. In standard form, that should be 8. Now 6 to the power of 2, we'd call that 6 squared. So it's really 6 times 6, which is 36 in standard form. 3 to the power of 4, we'd write that as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Now, the way I would do that is 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 9 is 81. All right, 10 to the power of 4 is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Now, when you multiply with tens, remember you just add zeros. So we have 4 zeros, so that's 10,000. Now, 8 squared means 8 to the power of 2. 8 times 8 is 64. And last, 7 cubed really means 7 times 7 times 7. So when I multiply that, you get 49 times 7, which you might have to do longhand. But if you do it correctly, you'll get 343. All right, you are ready to fill in, do some of the practice, fill in all the gaps in that module, and do the drill exercises. I'll see you back in the next lesson.